Ready to cozy up your space this fall? Wisco Home Goods has just what you need. Hand-poured soy candles crafted in small batches, made to burn clean, and scented with the warm, comforting notes of the season. Stop by their shop at 4664 Cottage Grove Road on Madison's beautiful east side, or browse their fall collection online at wiscohomegoods.com. Shop local, breathe easy, feel good. All autumn long with Wisco Home Goods. This is CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Hello in there. I'm here to announce that CityCast Madison is kicking off our fall membership campaign today. It's the time of year when we remind you that while this local and independent daily podcast is totally free to listen to, we still rely on your support to make it happen. You can help sustain the show for just $10 a month or $100 a year by becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. At CityCast Madison, we believe better neighbors make better cities, and it's our mission to equip you to be a better neighbor every day by keeping you informed on important local issues and highlighting local businesses and orgs who are making our city better. To me, being a good neighbor looks like caring about your neighbor's well-being and needs, keeping up to date on their joys, their milestones, their challenges. Becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor is just one way you can be a good neighbor by supporting this team of locals who make this show happen every day, bringing those community updates and creating those connections for you. If that sounds like something you can get behind, head on over to membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm to become a neighbor and support local independent journalism. Today, it's no secret that artificial intelligence, aka AI, has become a regular part of many folks' daily lives. From drafting tonally pleasing emails to making vacation itineraries, people are relying on this technology more and more. But AI use in journalism isn't so clear-cut. Recently, the Wisconsin State Journal found out what happens when its use goes unchecked in the newsroom. With me today to dig into this journalismception story is the editor of Isthmus, Judith Davidoff. Judy, welcome to CityCast Madison.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so you all have been on this beat covering this story really closely. Tell us what happened with this AI debacle.
You know, this story appeared on the front page of the State Journal, and then it was the Sunday paper above the fold, and also online, of course. And, Jason Joyce, our publisher, who's also a news hound and a journalist, started reading it and just noticed that there were some things that didn't seem to fit, like a coffee shop that he had never heard of. And he slacked a few of us in the newsroom and just said, isn't this weird? And that, again, was on a Sunday, and, started digging into it to see what the issues were. And right before we were set to publish that story, the original story was pulled and reposted with an editor's note that did note that the original story had included errors, at least some of which were attributable to an unauthorized use of AI.
Yeah, and the story that was, since removed was talking about the Brayton lot, right, which is sort of 2-acre surface lot on East Washington Avenue. It's been empty forever. It's right by the Capitol. Folks have had a lot of interest in what is going there next. It could be affordable housing, so there's a lot of interest. And y'all, as you said, caught this error. Do you know at all, what the impact was on the local firms that were cited in the story who had erroneous things said about them and their place in redeveloping this lot?
I don't know of any, impact per se. When Jason did that first story, which was the first in our coverage, he did reach out to someone at Neutral, one of the firms that had submitted a proposal, to confirm that, at least in that original story, a lot of the information was incorrect about what their proposal actually included.
So for those of us in the journalism world, it's one of those clutching our hearts. It really, this story very much so hit Like, oh, how did this happen? And Judy, you recently spoke with the reporter at the center of the controversy, Audrey Court. What did she have to say for herself when it came to the use of AI and her later termination from the State Journal?
Audrey does take responsibility for using AI. She said it was a program on her work computer. She cannot remember the specific prompt she used when she fed the story that she had already reported and written into the AI program. She did share that in the past she's used AI essentially as an editing tool. Can you make this writing sharper or more concise? But she can't remember what the exact prompt was for this article. And there were a lot of things that she talked about. She has had Lyme's disease for, I believe, more than a decade. She associated issues with that. She is fairly new to town. She came from the Chippewa Herald. She'd only really been there a couple of months. She was filling in for the beat reporter who covers development projects. So she said she was running on low sleep, high anxiety to get something done under, deadline pressure. And she says that she, in reading over the piece, just did not see the information that she says was essentially added by the bot, these so-called hallucinations that AI can produce. Those are the pieces, that she shared. And then she also says that the piece really did not receive any editing attention. I will say right now, any of my comments, I don't feel we still have the full story because the State Journal has labeled all of this a personnel issue. Audrey was fired for the story. We've now covered this in 3 different instances, and each time the executive editor, Kelly Lecker, has not. The first time she wasn't available to comment. She had suggested Jason contact someone from Lee Enterprises, which owns the State Journal. That person never called Jason back. And then when I have contacted her, she said that they're not allowed to comment on personnel, or they can't comment on a personnel matter. So we don't know from their perspective really what happened.
Wow. So the State Journal hasn't really responded to this at all. Outside of saying this is a personnel matter, we can't go further.
Well, that first editor's note where they do, and I don't remember the exact wording, they did say that the original story was taken down. They acknowledged there were errors in the story, and they did refer to unauthorized use of AI.
Yeah.
But that's the extent of explanation.
I noticed in your story about this when you spoke with her, there was a quote saying that she wanted to set the record straight. Did you find any sort of misrepresentations of this incident, or is it just hard to verify because you weren't able to get through to, the outlet?
Right. All that we really have right now is Audrey's recitation of events, her sharing of what she was going through that week, her take on why she failed to see that information added, and also her claim of lack of editing. We don't have a response to that. And that really is unfortunate because I do think that, transparency around these issues is important, and it really does affect all of us in the media because people already have a lack of trust. We can't really afford incidents like this that, further erode trust.
Yeah. You are an editor yourself. That's part of why we wanted to talk to you about what are you making of her story? And you're saying it's very unfortunate if she didn't have that opportunity to have that support. Audrey also mentioned that she took on this story from another reporter who was going on vacation. So that sort of staffing is clearly an issue here. Do you have any sense or thoughts that this might become more common in our industry, as the journalism industry continues to face just financial challenges?
Oh, yeah. It really is a crisis. And, as someone who has always valued the role of editors, both, doing it and for my own writing, there's nothing that gives me more confidence than sharing my copy with, people I really trust who are going to vet it and improve the copy in various ways. One of the reasons I was always drawn to Isthmus from the beginning and on out is because we really had multi-levels of editing. One of my saddest days, I think, was when our full-time copy editor, I believe, went down and then ultimately did retire, because probably we were one of the few organizations that still had a real copy editor. And that's now unheard of across the industry. I think that's a really sad sign. And I did write about lack of staffing. I mean, in between the first story we did and the last one, I did do a whole column around, is the problem here really shrinking newsrooms where you just don't have people around to even, guide reporters through the story and ask the hard questions, both while it's being reported and edited.
Yeah, it's truly changing times. And, you used to have these buildings filled with people, and just keeping the lights on is a challenge. And you can't help but think about her career, right? Like, she was let go. Did she tell you at all, like, what this choice and what this mistake might mean for her career? I mean, in light of the fact that she did take accountability for the mistake.
Yeah, I mean, she, at the end of that piece, she talks about really not getting callbacks, and those are for, more communications jobs and marketing jobs. It's been a very, very difficult time for her, at knowing what opportunities might be available in the future. I think it's a real big question mark.
You know what fall in Wisconsin's like. 1 minute it's sunny and 60 degrees, the next you're scraping your windshield in the dark. Every year, someone gets caught by the first freeze. This year, don't let it be you. Think about it. Your furnace hasn't run in months. You flip the switch one night and instead of heat, you get a clunk. The dread, not another thing to do. And now you're on the waiting list with everyone else. That's why Cardinal Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, and Electric is running an early bird furnace tune-up special. It's $134 if you book before September 30th. A small price to avoid a cold, cranky house and a panicked $1,000 repair later. You're not just booking a tune-up, you're buying peace of mind before the chaos hits. Because smart homeowners, they prepare when the leaves fall, not when the snow does. Head to cardinalservice.com to schedule online now. Beat the freeze, sleep better, stay warm.
Learning a new language opens the door to new friends, new cultures, maybe even a whole new life. So why not start that journey today? I'm CityCast CEO David Plotz, and I'm learning Spanish with Babbel. Babbel's conversation-based technique quickly teaches you useful words and phrases about the things you actually talk about in the real world. I've been practicing my Spanish with Babbel's AI conversation partner. I can choose my conversation topic and have a real-time dialogue. It's great at helping me think on my feet, and it's improving my pronunciation. Also, it's really easy to do anytime on my phone using Babbel's excellent mobile app. It's just one of the many fantastic Babbel tools for learning. Plus, Babbel has a real-time feedback, progress trackers, and handy visualizations, all of which make it really easy to stay motivated to learn. I want you to learn another language. So CityCast is teaming up with Babbel to gift you 55% off subscriptions, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Babbel.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hey there, Haley Sperling here, executive producer of CityCast Madison. You know from listening to this show that we love Madison, but the only reason that this show works is because of you. You tune in because you're genuinely invested in the local conversation. If I had to guess, you're probably someone who shops local whenever possible. You might be the go-to friend for local gossip, and I wouldn't be surprised if you carry your library card around everywhere you go. If this sounds like you, I'd like to invite you to join CityCast Madison Neighbors. Our membership program is designed to help folks like you who care about our city engage more deeply with life here. You'll get invites to members-only events, our curated weekly roundup of the best things to do in the city, and now through October 3rd, you'll get an awesome tote bag that says Neighbors Make Madison, because it's true. You can become a CityCast Madison neighbor for just $10 a month or $100 a year at membership.citycast.fm. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm.
Hey y'all, I want to remind you about all the perks of becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor. There are many, but the biggies, members-only events where we explore and better our city together, like our recent tour of the state capitol building and then grabbing drinks at Jenna's Lounge after, which was a blast. A weekly email with hand-picked events from around the city to help you get out in the community. The opportunity to shout out a local business or organization doing good work in Madison. And we can't forget ad-free listening to the CityCast Madison podcast. That's like 3 minutes of your life back. Less of me, but hey. Plus, during our fall campaign, anyone who joins is getting our extra special Neighbors Make Madison tote. That's right, a tote bag and a reminder when you're bouncing around Madison that when neighbors show up, our city thrives. So I'm asking kindly if you could please take a moment to support the show and let us shower you with all the perks. Join right now for $10 a month or $100 a year at membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. Something that's just really sitting with me is the lack of depth of response from the State Journal on this incident. We work in an industry, as you mentioned, that transparency is so important. Do you think that they have an obligation to comment? You know, what's being lost in their silence?
I think it's good practice to comment and be transparent. You know, obligation, I don't know, that might take it to a different level, but I certainly think that it would be in their best interest and in the best interest of local media in town that they explained what happened. Of course, people are wondering. And again, this whole issue of trusting the information that's being provided to readers, you know, you leave a question mark out there. And of course, it's just the whole new world of AI and what impact that is going to have. I do think it's unfortunate that they have not been more forthcoming.
Yeah, so I want to talk about lessons learned. We know that putting out the news takes a village. You know, Isthmus uses a fair amount of contractors to build out your paper. How do you all keep AI use in check? Or are you thinking about this differently, you know, like after the story dropped?
You know, in one of my other columns, I was just writing about a new professor at UW who's starting this lab and will be, it sounds like, available to help newsrooms figure out their AI use and AI policies. Well, we absolutely don't have a policy yet. We are thinking of going through that exercise. I know a few of us have fooled around a little bit with AI, mostly around headlines that we, you know, look to it for ideas. I don't think anyone has ever used a verbatim headline, but, you know, just use it as a idea generator. Again, we have not sat down and said this is prohibited, this is allowed. You know, part of it is that what apps are we already using that use AI and we don't even think of it that way? You know, some of the note transcription services, you know, Otter AI, that does help transcribe long interview notes. I can't see prohibiting that. What I do know is I don't think that we would ever endorse the use of AI for writing a story or editing a story. But, you know, it's a whole new world. And I don't pretend to know really much about it at all. And I think we all have to learn more. And that's kind of the stage where we're at. We are looking forward to meeting with this lab maybe and starting that process and going from there. But for now, we really don't use AI in our process much at all.
Yeah, I mean, you're just dead on with it. AI is built into the systems. We're all using AI probably every day, whether or not we know it. But then there are different tools, and I think people who would be advocating for AI technology would say that it could be a great use in journalism. So I did want to ask if there are ever any valid uses for AI in journalism. And you mentioned transcribing, and we, talked about it earlier, but your piece on shrinking newsrooms, what do we do? Do we turn down help?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, because I'm not really versed in it, I don't feel like I'm at the point where I can talk intelligently about what, a good use might be. But yeah, I mean, for, quantitative stories, processes that would help, analyze an open records request. Maybe there are uses in there, but I'm not there yet. I'm sure other people are much further down the line with that. And I think that people just have to know really how they work and where the danger points might be. Obviously never relying ultimately without, humans checking things over.
Yeah. It's a brave, new, terrifying world, but it is one that we have to grapple with. And so, just feeling really grateful for all the work that Isthmus has done and keeping us in the loop on this, and, excited at this opportunity to talk to you. You mentioned it earlier, trust in media is so important. And in recent years, and including news outlets, we've drawn some doubt from readers, listeners, and viewers, the big term fake news. And so building trust in media, we already know, is central to a thriving democracy, giving people the tools they need to live their lives. So what ways can news media build back trust with their communities as we continue to be painted with these broad strokes as untrustworthy? Because we're trying, right?
Yeah, I think that there are a few things. I will say that in general, according to surveys, people do trust their local media more than they do the large national outlets. So that's one thing, already in our favor. Since we became a nonprofit a few years ago, we started a few things. So I have a newsletter, Isthmus Insider, and that goes out weekly. And I do see it as an opportunity to build trust by explaining what we're doing, explaining more about stories, maybe some of the backstory, and just really keeping people up to date on kind of our journey as a nonprofit. And, this is why we're doing what we're doing.
I really enjoy reading those, by the way.
Well, thank you. And also, we do use it to push some copy out, but I do see it as a direct kind of link to readers. When we went to monthly print and, talked about, well, do you want a column, from the editor? In the past, making the paper, Vince O'Hearn, the founder of Isthmus, would use his weekly column to more talk about the content in the paper and maybe anything else that was on his mind. And for whatever reason, and maybe it is because I feel like we're in this time of low trust and just danger for the whole field of journalism, I started writing the column more about journalism issues, issues of civics and democracy. So it just morphed into that. And so I do think that outlets who take on maybe those topics a little bit more could also help build some trust by just talking about things, because people, the media is a mystery to a lot of people. I think one of our issues is that it's hard for people to understand just how hard journalism is. Even a little story, to get those sources, to get the sources on the record, to be able to fact check, to get spokespeople who would rather not talk to you and, might insist on a emailed statement, which of course does nothing for storytelling or really exploring a topic. So journalism is hard to do and it's expensive. And I think that there are a lot of people who don't understand the world of journalism. And so I think it is on us to try and explain what it is we do, why we do what we do, and in some cases, especially for those of us in the nonprofit field, what it costs to produce that kind of information. Other ways, we've started doing some community meetups at the local libraries where we just invite people to come and meet staff and ask questions about anything about us or local events. I don't know.
That's a lot. That's a lot of things. I mean, same, like literally same. I think exactly as you shared, lifting the veil. And it is truly people know that they want to be connected. And in the past, if they haven't had that experience, there are a lot of opportunities now to connect and find out why and how stories are being told. That transparency is really key. So thank you for modeling it in our community. We also are trying to do similar things alongside you in partnership with you. You know, thinking about moving forward on the topic of transparency, the situation does, you know, with the AI story, does seem like a missed opportunity for the State Journal to have stepped up and take accountability and offer some transparency to their readers, even with all the pressures that we face. Do you have any last thoughts about what other media organizations can take away from this unfortunate series of events?
I mean, one of the things that I do wonder about with the State Journal is what agency they have, since they are corporately owned by Lee. Maybe it's Lee calling the shots and not allowing, you know, the local editor to speak more freely. You know, I don't know. That, of course, does, you know, speak to the importance sometimes of independent journalism, independent ownership. And, you know, we have a board of directors. The board of directors don't really, you know, they don't get involved in content decision. It's more of a governance structure, but I don't need to ask them, you know, what I want to share about, you know, our editorial process. That's a difference.
Yeah. So consider going independent. We do love, you know, yeah, right. We do value the State Journal deeply, and, you know, we're all out here trying to do our best.
And, you know, that is one of the things I mean, you know, I think media criticism in the past, you know, especially, I mean, they're definitely sniping and it can be more sort of undercutting. That's never been my intent here. You know, anytime people say, I'm going to cancel my, you know, subscription to this or that, you know, that's your decision. But there are still people. I mean, the State Journal is still covering things that other organizations don't. Same with, you know, we're covering things others don't. So there's still value. And I think in part, that's maybe why I do think that I want people to still see that value and not reject it because of a lack of transparency over an incident.
Well, Judy, thank you so much for your time and insight into this story. I appreciate you carving this out and joining us today.
I thank you very much.
That's Judith Davidoff, editor at Isthmus. If you'd like to read more about this story, we'll have a link to Isthmus's reporting in our show notes. That's all for today, here on CityCast Madison. I'm your host, Bianca Martin. Don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. I want to thank all of you who are already neighbors. Thank you for supporting us. It means the world. And reminder for you out there listening who are thinking about joining up or want to join, there truly are some wonderful member benefits, like getting to hang out with the team at exclusive member events throughout the year. And y'all, if you join during this campaign, you get a Neighbors Make Madison tote. Come on, you want to sport that tote. Alrighty, join right now for $10 a month or $100 a year at membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. And hey, if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this episode with someone who values local news and accountability? We'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, take great care.